Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. Imagine you just, stepped out of a really tense hour-long meeting with a frustrated client.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
Right. And you walk back to your desk, your boss rolls their chair over and asks, "So what did they say?"
Panic sets in.
Exactly. And if your answer begins with, well, he said this, and then I said that, and then he said something else, you've already lost the room. You sound like you're just playing back a tape recorder rather than actually understanding the business problem.
It is the quickest way to just drain all the authority out of your voice. I
You
mean,
know?
when you rely entirely on basic verbs like say and tell, you you basically strip away the entire emotional context of the conversation.
Yeah, which is why today we're handing you a simple, practically instant upgrade to your English that solves this exact problem.
A very necessary upgrade.
Definitely. You're going to sound more professional, precise, and trustworthy.
And the best part is, you do not need to memorize some massive dictionary of complex vocabulary to pull this off.
No, nobody has time for that. Right. We are moving completely away from that exhausting he said, she said loop, and instead we're going to look at specific reporting verbs that capture the true emotion and intent behind any conversation.
And to give you a solid anchor for this, we're focusing on 5 of the most powerful reporting verbs you can use.
Yes, and there's a punchy mnemonic to lock this into your brain right now. It's SWAPD.
SWATD.
Yeah, it stands for smart words always prove decisive. So that's suggest, warn, admit, promise, deny.
Yeah.
Smart words always prove decisive.
I love that. And mastering those 5 specific verbs fundamentally shifts your role in any interaction. You stop acting like a passive bystander.
Right.
And you step into the role of a true, fluent communicator who actually understands the subtext of the room.
Let's look at the psychology of why we do this in the first place. I call it the trap of the human recorder. Because when I was first learning a second language, my brain was working at maximum capacity, just trying to translate the literal words coming out of someone's mouth.
Oh, the cognitive load is massive. Your working memory is entirely consumed by just vocabulary and grammar.
Exactly. So naturally, when someone asks me to retell that conversation later, my instinct is to cling to the original sentence as closely as possible.
Because it feels safer.
Yeah. So if a coworker from IT comes over and tells me, "Don't open that attachment, it might be unsafe," I am going to turn around and tell my manager, "He said not to open the attachment."
Right. And grammatically, there is nothing wrong with that sentence. It's structurally sound. But functionally, it's completely flat. I mean, it completely misses the energy and the urgency of the moment. Now, consider the alternative. He warned me not to open the attachment.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the moment you drop the word warned into that sentence, the whole temperature changes. It goes from a casual comment to, like, active threat prevention.
Exactly. You are proving to your listener that you grasp the stakes. The IC guy wasn't just making small talk, he was actively trying to stop a disaster.
Right, right.
When you use warned, you communicate the gravity of the situation instantly.
It's the difference between being a copy machine and being a movie director.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, a copy machine just scans a piece of paper and spits out the exact same ink. There's no nuance, no perspective, just prints words. But when you use a strong reporting verb, you become the director. You are setting the exact lighting, the mood, the stakes, and the purpose of the scene for your audience. You're giving them the lens through which they should view the information.
Which means you are demonstrating emotional intelligence. Let's look at another scenario, actually. Think about the difference between telling a colleague, "My manager said I should check the report again," versus, "My manager advised me to check the report again."
Yeah, advised carries a totally different social dynamic. It sounds like mentorship.
Exactly. It reveals the capacity in which the person was speaking. Your manager wasn't just casually throwing words into the air. They were actively guiding you.
Right.
Using advised instantly communicates the hierarchy and the purpose of the interaction. You're reading the room, not just reading a transcript.
Okay, so if the goal is to capture that intent, let's open up the SWAPD toolkit and actually categorize these different types of intent. I want to look at the spectrum of commitment. On one side, you have the S suggest, and on the other, you have the P promise.
And they sit on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Using them correctly basically dictates how people respond to the information.
Okay, how so?
Well, suggest is a beautifully soft verb. It places an idea on the table without forcing anyone to pick it up. Instead of the clunky, "She said we could maybe take a short break," you simply say, "She suggested taking a short break."
Ah, right. It maintains a collaborative atmosphere.
Exactly.
If my department head suggests we pivot the marketing strategy, The door is open for discussion. If I misreport that to my team and say she ordered a new strategy, I have just created unnecessary panic.
Yeah, you would be totally distorting the social reality of the meeting. Suggest protects that open, low-pressure dynamic. Now, on the other end, we have promise.
And that is a word with serious weight. You don't just throw promise around lightly.
No, you don't. It locks in a clear commitment. Let's say you're negotiating with a vendor and you report back to your purchasing department. He said he would lower the price.
Yeah, the purchasing department is going to look at you and wonder if that's actually going to happen. I mean, people say a lot of things.
Right. But if I walk in and say he promised to lower the price, I'm putting his reputation on the line. I'm telling my team that this person gave their word.
You emphasize the responsibility. And if the vendor fails to deliver, breaking a promise carries significantly more professional consequence than just failing to do something they casually said they might do.
Exactly. The stakes are raised.
So the weight of a promise is heavy. But what happens when the stakes aren't about someone committing to help, but rather trying to stop something bad from happening? This brings us to the WV in SWAPD, warn.
Yes. This is your critical tool for safety, risk, and professional boundaries.
Think about driving. He warned me not to drive too fast because the road was wet. If I just say, he told me not to drive fast, I make him sound annoying.
Like a nag.
Yeah, exactly. Like a backseat driver who won't stop nagging.
Yeah.
But he warned me shifts the perspective entirely. It shows care. It shows danger.
It fundamentally alters the listener's perception of the original speaker's character.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go for it.
If I'm in a high-stress situation and my brain is scrambling for vocabulary in real time, my default is to just lean on adverbs. Instead of trying to pull the specific word warn out of my memory, I might just say, he strongly said not to drive fast. Doesn't that do the exact same job?
It's a completely natural reflex, but it falls short. Strongly said is incredibly vague.
How so? I mean, if I say it forcefully enough, doesn't the point get across?
Think about the ambiguity. What does strongly said actually look like? Was he yelling? Was he crying? Was he slamming his fist on the table? We have no idea. We just know there was some kind of force behind the words. But the word warn surgically signals negative consequences.
I see.
It's a core principle for speaking sharply. Better verbs, not longer sentences. You do not need to stack up adverbs like strongly, loudly, or seriously when a single precise verb does all the heavy lifting for you.
Better verbs over longer sentences. It's so much more efficient.
Okay.
So we have future actions with suggest and promise and future risks with warn. But what about dealing with the past? You know, when reality is already messy, let's hit the A and the D, admit and deny.
Right. These two are essentially the flip sides of truth. They both deal with establishing reality after an event has occurred, but from opposite defensive postures.
Right, because admit requires vulnerability. You don't admit that it's raining outside. You admit things that cost you a little bit of pride.
Exactly. You admit to uncomfortable realities. Imagine a colleague accidentally deletes a shared project file. If you report she said she deleted the file, it's merely factual. It sounds like a status update.
Yeah, true.
But if you say she admitted deleting the file, you are revealing her character.
It shows she owned up to it. She faced the music.
Right. It implies a sense of taking responsibility. The listener now knows that this was a difficult truth for her to share, and she chose honesty anyway.
And deny acts as the absolute shield against that reality.
Deny is your formal rejection of an accusation.
So if someone points a finger and says, you leaked that memo to the press, you don't just say, I said I didn't do it. That sounds incredibly weak. You say, he denied leaking the memo.
Yeah, that phrasing tells your listener that there was an active conflict, an accusation was hanging in the air, and the person aggressively pushed it away. It's defensive, it's formal, and it's razor sharp.
Suggest, warn, admit, promise, deny, SWAPD. Now, knowing the right tools is only half the battle, right? Putting them together into a sentence without stumbling is where things usually fall apart in real conversation.
Absolutely. Having a great vocabulary doesn't help much if you don't know how to swing the hammer. This requires understanding the hidden architecture of how these words naturally behave in a sentence.
I always notice a specific trap here, especially with the word suggest. My brain desperately wants to put the word to after it. It feels so natural to say, she suggested to take a break.
Native ears catch that immediately. I mean, it doesn't stop them from understanding you, but it acts like a tiny speed bump in the flow of the conversation.
It just feels slightly off balance.
Yeah. There's a quirk with verbs like suggest, admit, and deny. The natural structure is to use the ing sound right after them. You don't suggest to take, you suggest taking. You don't admit to make a mistake, you admit making a mistake.
She suggested taking a break. He denied breaking the phone.
Yeah. The moment you lock in that ing sound, the sentence just glides. It sounds incredibly polished.
And for commitments or instructions like promise or warn, the structure shifts slightly. You lean on that to sound. She promised to help. He warned me not to open it.
Promise to help. Warn to stay away.
That feels a bit more intuitive. But what if I need to give a lot of background information? Like if it's not just a quick action, but a whole scenario.
That is when you build a bridge with the word that and just tell the whole story. They warned us that the road was dangerous because of the ice. He admitted that the project was running 3 weeks behind schedule.
So you just drop the word that and then plug in a completely normal sentence.
Exactly. It gives you unlimited room to explain the context without tangling up your grammar.
Okay. But as learners start feeling confident with these structures, I see them overcompensate. I have done this myself. You realize you have this newfound power to set the mood of a scene, so you start reaching for the most intense, sophisticated words you can find.
Yes. The complexity trap.
Yes. Instead of saying, my coworkers suggested we try a different software, I want to sound really authoritative in front of my boss, so I say, he demanded we use the other software. It sounds punchier.
And you have just completely rewritten the reality of the room.
I've essentially accused my colleague of being hostile, haven't I?
You threw him right under the bus. If he casually offered an idea and you report it as a demand, your boss now thinks you're dealing with an aggressive, uncooperative team member.
All because I wanted to flex my vocabulary.
Yeah. Accuracy must always override complexity. The goal is not to sound like a lawyer reading a legal brief at a coffee shop, using words like conceded or asserted in everyday chat. The goal is emotional honesty. A simple, perfectly constructed sentence using suggest is infinitely better than a complex, unnatural sentence that distorts the truth.
Right. It's about choosing the verb that honestly matches the situation, not the one that scores the highest points on a vocabulary test. So taking this out of the theoretical and into the practical, how do we start applying this the second we walk into the office tomorrow?
You need a framework that you can rely on when the pressure is on. Think of it like carrying a heavy box. You don't try to juggle your keys, hold your coffee, and kick the door open at the exact same time. You set the box down first.
Get the foundation secure before you add the complications.
Exactly. The foundation here is a 3-part formula. Person plus reporting verb plus main message. Keep it remarkably short at first. He promised to send the file.
Person, he. Verb promised. Message, to send the file. No extra fluff.
Right. Once you deliver that core idea smoothly, then you can pick your coffee back up and add the details. He promised to send the file before the afternoon meeting.
What fascinates me is how this simple formula creates such a stark contrast depending on the environment. In everyday life, it just makes you socially sharp. If I tell my friend my brother said he was sorry, it sounds a bit childish. But if I say my brother apologized for being rude, I am capturing the actual social repair that took place.
It shows maturity. But when you carry that same formula into a professional environment, it elevates your status from a mere messenger to an actual analyst.
Walk me through the corporate version of that.
Okay, imagine you're reporting back to your director after a tense client call. If you use the basic approach and say, the customer said something about the price, you sound unprepared. You sound like a passive observer who wasn't really grasping the business implications.
Yeah, it leaves the director wondering what they are actually supposed to do with that vague information.
Exactly. But apply the formula. The customer complained that the price was too high.
Ooh. Complained demands a response.
It flags an active problem that requires a strategic intervention. By using that specific verb, you prove to your superiors that you comprehend the emotional weight of the client's words. You aren't just reciting a transcript, you are diagnosing the interaction.
But here is a pitfall I hit constantly. Even when I know I should use a word like suggest, I get bogged down by how the person originally spoke. Let's say a colleague in a meeting is really nervous and they say, I was thinking maybe it would be a good idea if we, possibly waited until tomorrow to make the decision, just to be safe.
Yes. A classic hesitant corporate ramble.
Right. My instinct is to try and capture all of that hesitation, so I'm being accurate to what they said. So I start reporting it as, he said that maybe it would be a good idea if we possibly waited. and I lose my audience halfway through the sentence.
You lose them because you are summarizing the words, not the meaning. Fluent communicators slice right through the noise.
Just slice through the noise.
All of that nervous rambling, maybe, possibly, just to be safe, it all boils down to one clean, elegant action. He suggested waiting until tomorrow.
He suggested waiting until tomorrow. That is so sharp.
When you summarize the meaning, you are actually doing the original speaker a massive favor. You strip away their insecurity and you present their core idea clearly to the room.
It all circles back to the central theme here. These reporting verbs are incredibly small words, but they wield massive power. They break you out of the habit of acting like a human dictionary, translating every single syllable, and they transform you into someone who truly, deeply understands the subtext of human communication.
And that builds trust. I mean, when you use precise language, you project quiet confidence. People rely on you more when they feel like you grasp the reality of a situation, not just the raw audio.
So what's the practical challenge for the listener as they go about their day?
I want you to try a silent listening exercise. Whether you're in a boardroom, at a coffee shop, or at the dinner table tonight, do not just listen to the literal words people are saying.
Look past the dialogue.
Right. Try to silently identify the hidden verb in their statements. As someone is speaking, ask yourself, are they really just saying something right now? Or are they subtly suggesting a change? Are they apologizing for an oversight? Are they warning me about a roadblock? Are they promising an outcome?
It's like looking at the underlying code of the conversation. You stop seeing the random words and start seeing the actual architectural intent.
Exactly. When you train your brain to constantly listen for the intent, producing the right SWAPD verb when it's your turn to speak becomes entirely second nature. You stop translating and you start communicating.
It proves that mastering a language is just as much about how you process the world coming into your ears as it is about what comes out of your mouth. But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over tonight. We talked about how choosing the right verb clarifies reality. But think about how many massive arguments in your personal life or at the office start entirely because of a reporting verb mismatch in someone's head. How many times has a conflict exploded not because of what was actually said, but because one person interpreted a gentle suggestion as a hostile demand? The words we choose to frame a memory don't just describe the past, they dictate the future.
That is a very profound way to look at it.
Remember the mnemonic, SWAPD. Smart words always prove decisive. Suggest, warn, admit, promise, and deny. It is time to unplug the copy machine in your brain, step into the director's chair, and start setting the scene. Thanks for joining us.